When was the last time you thought about your relationship with work? More than just your employment, and deeper than your day-to-day job. The little things that get under your skin, those small victories that remind you of why you do what you do. Deeper than this concept we call work-life balance, or how you impact your communities and the world around you. Even deeper than what you call your professional self, how you grapple with a journey of a life of labor. You might call this your career, your profession, maybe even your calling or your vocation, your trade, your art, your service. To be honest, there are two questions I actually want you to reflect on tonight. First, why do humans work? And second, why do you work? One question based in sociology, one question in psychology. Those of us here at College of the Atlantic, when seen together, we know it as human ecology. You have probably spent more time thinking about why you work, or at least why you do the work you do or want to do. So let's start with the first question. Why do humans work? Every human throughout history has had to grapple with this concept of work. The existential question of the value we put on our labor. Through all social, natural, and economic systems throughout history, through all methods of civic and community service, and through all forms of professional and vocational involvement, humans have had to grapple with their relationship with work, how they represent their labor, and how they work in community. So much of our lives is spent working, crafting professions, navigating gainful employment in a wage-based economy, or just thinking about vocations and careers. I call this identity that one constructs around work and jobs and careers as one's professional identity, just for simplicity. But again, why do we, as humans, work, all of us, as part of our human experience? Many believe that we must work, and that we must work together to achieve a sustainable future and strengthen our society. Some of us feel a calling to do certain work, or to serve humanity, or even conserve our natural world around us. Some may view work as a means to success or luxury, or even as a necessary evil for survival. How you answer the question of why work is called your work view, according to Dave Evans and Bill Burnett in their book, Designing Your Life. Your answer to the question of why humans work tells a lot about why you say you work, how you construct your professional identity, how you see yourself in connection to this vast, global network of humans. And that leads us to the other question. Why do you work? In my day job, I'm a career educator, researcher, and coach. So I help people think through the different careers and jobs that might bring them fulfillment while also sustaining them economically. So this makes me think a lot about why we choose certain jobs and certain careers. So much so, it became my dissertation and my research. So now, if you ask me about my vocation, I say I'm a career ecologist. A career ecologist is someone who thrives or who strives to understand the impacts of relationships between and within ecosystems, and that impact on one's professional identity and their career journey. I practice this by designing educational moments where those relationships within and between ecosystems can be explored authentically. Through my research, I have learned that if we don't begin with authenticity, we will not find purpose in our lives or belonging in our communities, personal or professional. Did you know that the roots of how you answer that question, why you work, are developed very early as a child, probably earlier than you realize? You might even be able to think back to early memories of that terrible and often reductionist question. What do you want to be when you grow up? This is such an impactful question, you often hear it in other TED Talks. I have a memory that I would love to share with you. So recently my mother said that she found a booklet that I wrote in 2nd grade. So last time I was home, I found this booklet, and I was very curious because I had no idea what she had found. When I found it, I was so surprised to see the prompt. What do you want to be when you grow up? I had no recollection of this project, so I had no idea what I would have said as a second grader. But I opened this book, and it was filled with nothing but images. Images of firefighters. I was floored. Though firefighters are one of our most noble and important professions in our society, when did I ever want to do something so dangerous and physical as firefighting? I come from a long line of teachers and farmers. So most of my career memories are associated with education and teaching and those kind of moments. So firefighters. But after a few seconds of looking through this booklet, I vividly remembered why. I did not want to be a firefighter. I wanted to drive the fire truck. The funny thing is, I still do. I've always seen this thread in my life. Do you have a car? A truck? A bus? A boat? A tractor? Maybe even someday a plane. Well, I want to drive it. This thread, though, it connects much more deeply. I love understanding how things work. But even deeper than that, I love systems. I love understanding and designing systems. If I do this, the system will react. Now, this extends to human systems. If you ask my therapist or my partner, this can manifest in a need to be in control. Though I call it an appreciation for the finer points of leadership. Through deep and intentional reflection now as an adult, I can see this thread as it weaves through my journey. I encourage you to reflect on your journey and how you constructed, whether forced or by choice, this idea around your professional identity. How you are in connection with humans around you. And think about how you constructed this identity around your professional identity in conjunction with other pieces of your dimensions of identity, such as your family and your region, your race, your religion or creed, your culture, your socioeconomic status, your ability, even your gender identity or expression, your sex or sexual orientation, even your nationality, your political stance, and geopolitical events that shook the whole world and our collective consciousness, COVID-19. The human ecosystems in which you have constructed your identity deeply impact your sense of self. And those systems, they impacted deeply your professional identity in your career journey. Tonight, I want you to come away understanding the power of authentic human ecosystems, a space where you find purpose and belonging. But before we continue talking about just a couple of the many facets of authenticity, let me share another example with you. When I was 10 years old, I had the opportunity to travel to the Philippines with my family. We went to Davao in the southern island of Mindanao. We stayed with my aunt and my uncle, my mother's sister, and her husband, a Filipino pastor. My father, who is a contractor by trade, was donating his skills and his time to help them build their community center and their library. So after raising money from our family and our church, along came my parents and their 5 children under the age of 10 to the Philippines. Now the kicker, this was in 2002, very shortly after the events of September 11th, 2001. They were insane. While we were there, we were homeschooled with our 3 cousins and introduced to the beautiful and incredible Filipino culture. I'm the oldest of my siblings. I only turned 10 during that experience. So as you can imagine, it was incredibly informative and impactful for me. I'm still reflecting on dimensions of my identity that were impacted, such as my global view of humanity, how I grew a passion for place and learning-based learning and education, and how I grew a love of understanding other people's perspectives, their frameworks, how they see the world. By a show of hands, how many of you are familiar with Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory? Okay. Consider all the layers of systems at play during this experience that I had in the Philippines and how it impacted my development. At the highest level, from the chrono system and traveling the year after 9/11, to the macro system and experiencing the Filipino culture, and the exosystem, which includes my father's trade and their relationship with my aunt and uncle, The mesosystem, where all these layers of systems interact, all the way down to the microsystem. And I was homeschooled, and all the deep relationships I developed with those around me. Through the practice of reflective intelligence, now as an adult, I can understand how I saw the world at that point, and I can construct further meaning about how that impacted the many intersecting dimensions of my life. So more specifically tonight, I want you to come away understanding how authentically reflecting and acting within human ecosystems impacts your ability to find purpose and belonging in your career journey. So now, with the very few minutes I have left, I want to quickly talk about what authenticity is and how we practice it, so that hopefully by the end, you too will come away believing that you are a career ecologist, committed to practicing and fostering authentic human ecosystems. Now, if you do any research on authenticity, you know there is no agreed upon definition, zero. Though, through my own research on professional identity development, I have found a definition I can stand by. Authenticity is the agency to act and present oneself that align with your values and your truths without feeling the need to hide or misrepresent oneself. Let me boil down those interconnected components again. Authenticity is first agency in how you act and how you present without feeling fear in your community. And it is second, living in alignment with your truths and your values. At this point, I can almost hear you asking in your heads, why authenticity? Why alignment? Why agency? Bell Lang and Tim Klein, they present how we are in the midst of a disconnection crisis in their book, How to Navigate Life. We feel disconnected from ourselves, from our education, from our futures. The reality is, we are not being taught discernment and how to authentically discern our sense of purpose and our need for belonging in community. Think back to the point that I want you to leave here with tonight, that there is tremendous power in authentic human ecosystems. When you find alignment with your authentic truths, you find purpose. When you find agency to act authentically in your community, you find belonging. That's the reason I start with authenticity. Our colleagues at the Bates College Center for Purposeful Work have found that people who find purpose are 10 times more likely to have high overall well-being, overall. I've also found that when you act authentically and how you present yourself and you share your story in community, those around you will also strive to live authentically. Authenticity is contagious. You can watch authentic human ecosystems grow all around you when you make that decision to live authentically. But Jeffrey, I hear you asking again, how do we practice authenticity in our professional lives, in our inauthentic, late-stage capitalist, neoliberal economies, where we must labor for our very survival? To be clear, though I do not believe that you can separate the personal and professional dimensions of your identity, I am not advocating for workism, which is when you make your professional identity the core of who you are. For a moment, I want to share a bit about what I found from my research that I did on queer and trans professionals in the United States and what they taught me about being an authentic professional. I found 4 components. I found a lot more, but I boiled it down to 4. An authentic professional is first someone who is confident in how they present themselves and their truths. Sound familiar? And they recognize the value of their educational and personal experiences beyond just their current employment. They see their vocational ability beyond just what they're doing. They are someone who has developed critical reflexivity and an understanding of how they both perpetuate and dismantle oppressive systems of professionalism. And lastly, they adopt an equity-minded lens to actively dismantle oppressive systems. They provide mentorship to assist individuals who come after them and to make accessible ecosystems for all. Do you feel supported in your lifelong journey, exploring what it means to be authentic? Do you feel like you have the space as a professional or as a student to explore the many intersecting dimensions of your identity? to build the necessary foundations for a life filled with purpose and belonging, feeling able to change the world around you in this perhaps yet unknown winding career journey that you have. I have one last story for you, I promise. When I was an undergraduate student, I made the decision to come out. And to my knowledge, I was actually the first at this little evangelical school in the Midwest to be out publicly as gay. As a sophomore, I came out to myself. As a junior, I decided to come out to my friends and my allies around me. As a senior, I made the huge decision to come out through an open letter to the entire campus, asking the community to see me as I saw me, authentically, Jeffrey. As a result, I saw an incredible and beautiful thing happen. An authentic human ecosystem grew all around me as others felt empowered to be authentic, to be vulnerable with their friends, their roommates, their families. When people were no longer willing to hide the true and authentic versions of themselves, a culture of belonging flourished. This experience set my life on a trajectory that has led me to this very moment. I was absolutely terrified when I came out that my administration would expel me, that my peers, my staff, my faculty, that they would reject me for who I am, for being honest. It was actually Brené Brown, through her TED Talk on the power of vulnerability, that inspired me to come out, to be vulnerable, to be authentic. Though the reaction from my university's administration was chilly, to say the least, the support I received from my peers, from my staff, and from my faculty made me realize that I wanted to provide students that space to reflect authentically on their intersecting identities, to find their purpose and belonging in their communities, in your communities. So I leave you with this tonight. View yourself as a career ecologist. Strive to see the deep relationships within and between ecosystems on your professional identity and your career journey. Commit to fostering authentic human ecosystems. And lastly, be an authentic professional. Reflect deeply. Be the author of your own story. Construct your deep sense of purpose. Be confident in who you are, so you too can support the growth of belonging in your ecosystems, and you can be ready to change the world. And that, I think, is an idea worth spreading. Thank you.